When he woke up in the morning, he would say, I'm going to create a universe. I'm going to be God today.
Is there such a thing as reincarnation?
When it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you.
Isn't it one's purpose in life to find out these things?
Welcome, everyone, into GoD presents the Book of Black. But I have to tell you, more and more, this is becoming the Gospel of Thomas, because we have Mr. Thomas here. And beyond the Gospel of Thomas, we are going to get the pumpetus of the prophet, because our guest today is Jeremy Prophet. You've seen him on AW Dark. You've seen him on AW Collision. He is a new tag team champion, so congratulations for that. And he's coming to us from Montreal, the Royal Mountain, Canada, maybe the 51st state, not sure. What's going on, Jeremy?
I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate that wonderful intro. And yes, I plan on prophesizing. I plan on speaking the truth as I always do. And most important of all, entertaining the many people watching and listening to this fine podcast that we're here on.
Yeah, so yeah, they'll be listening, and they'll be listening on the Wrestling Soup Network and or the Garden of Doom feed. So we're excited about that. Mr. Thomas, you just came back from Mexico City as you're about to sip your La Croix. I guess you're getting in the French mood while we're here. How was Mexico City?
A quick weekend, a little quick getaway to Mexico City. I did swing by Arena, Mexico to get my barber a mask. He requested a luchador mask so he could play in this paintball tournament next week. That's the most amount of wrestling I feel like talking about right now. Outside of that, the food was great. I love Condesa. They treat me like a king. Yeah, it's easy being elegante amongst the average size humans in Mexico. So
that's fantastic. I don't know how you were in Mexico City over the weekend, because I saw you on YouTube, but well, not wrestling really, getting involved in fighting with some horsemen. I don't know how time works. I guess Texas, you could do it.
It's all on a time delay. It's all on a time delay. Time is relevant, but that is a different episode, and that is a different host, I think. So
yeah, I know that you had very long legs. So and last episode of MLW, I saw that you could actually fly. So
and this is true.
Yeah. All right, Jeremy.
Oh, we're back. I'm back in Tampa. I'm here for a couple days, ready to rock and roll. And we got our boy Jeremy Prophet on today. I love a good Canadian. So we'll figure things out as we go along here.
Yeah. Now, first of all, Thomas, you've been doing this a couple decades. Jeremy, you've been doing this a couple decades. Have you guys ever crossed paths?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, he looks pretty familiar, but maybe I've just seen a couple of his matches here and there.
Let's see. My only appearance in Montreal before the Mounties told me not to come back was, I don't remember the name of you're putting me on the spot right now. I don't remember the name of the company that we worked for, but we wrestled. I'm having a stroke right now. I'm going to look this up because you can't. I got brain damage. I had a match in Montreal against this fucking Canadian name team that says like the fuck. I can't tell you right now.
Okay, the Canadian.
Would that have been the Tabernacle team?
Tabernacle team. See?
Yeah.
You see how wrestlers communicate?
Yeah.
Tabernacle team. We came all the way, the Devastation Corporation came all the way to Montreal to wrestle Canada's greatest tag team, Tabernacle team. They are the greatest wrestlers of all time. It was amazing. I don't remember the name of the promotion. I apologize right now. It could only be one of like two ones that I'm thinking of, but we did wrestle in the same building. Their claim to fame was that Kurt Cobain had sang in back in 1990, right before they went big.
Well, late fuck is the appropriate term there. Jeremy, tell us a little bit.
I got to correct one thing, because he called them the greatest tag team in all of Canada. Just two little footnotes on that. First of all, believe it or not, you're actually talking to the guy who put those two together. So they're both my sons, even though they're only slightly younger than me. I was the one who said, you guys would be a hell of a team. And I was the first one to actually book them together. So I got to take a slight little bit of credit for their success in being the one that the light bulb went on for to make that happen, so that you could have that outstanding match with them.
Wrestling's the smallest world in the world.
Yeah, but also you mentioned being part of the Devastation Corporation. So that puts you a little bit more into context for me, because I had worked with a guy who I believe was part of your group. I think he went by Flex Rumble Crunch. Am I getting it?
Yeah, of course. Flex Rumble Crunch, the best.
Yeah, so I worked with him throughout New England. We had quite a few matches. We were even on the same side a couple of times too. So now I know exactly who you are. Not that we've crossed paths, but I'm familiar with your work.
We love Sean Burke. Sean Burke, the Flex Rumble Crunch, call him what you want to call him. He is a great father and a Miami Dolphins fan. So much like myself, he's trapped in purgatory. Wow. Shout out to Flex Rumble Crunch.
Yeah, well, I'm a Ravens fan, so we don't get beaten. We beat ourselves in big and sometimes not important games. So,
And Jeff, just like you and I, we're only 1 degree away from each other, and we never even knew it. 1 degree.
that's right, 1 degree.
Much like the wrestling business. So,
But now that degree is gone. So, Jeremy, first of all, congratulations. You are tag team champion. So, who's your partner and what titles you get? And is it the same promotion that you think Thomas maybe was in?
No, I definitely wouldn't have been that promotion. They've only been around for about 3 or 4 years. It's Gatineau Pro Wrestling. Gatineau is the town, Gatineau, Quebec. It's a town that's right on the border of Ottawa, which is our nation's capital. It's pretty much our Washington, D.C. is Ottawa. That's where the Parliament building is, where the prime ministers and all the politicians make things happen. So Gatineau is the sister city that's located in our province. But the two cities are kind of like right along the same dividing line. That's where I won the tag titles. My partner was franchise Brad Alexis, a guy who's been doing this even longer than me, believe it or not. He's got about 22 years in the game. I'm almost in my 20th year. And we just keep getting better and better, like a fine wine. And that championship win, it's got to put me somewhere around 60 championships, which, not to toot my own horn, it's just kind of a byproduct of being stuck in the minor leagues.
It's also a byproduct of Canada, where they'd be doing that shit 4 nights a week in every town, and there's a title change. And then you come back and run it back the next week. I'm on to this bullshit. You're fucking pad statin, or what do you call it? Yeah, statin or fucking stat padding. There we go.
Yeah, no, it's huge stack padding. I mean, because when you think about it, I've cherry picked all these championships, and it's just a case of, I don't feel I should be at this level. But hey, if promoters are going to keep giving me top billing and putting me there, I'm not going to say no.
Love to see it. Love to see it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, first of all, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this before, but you've got a bit of an affect of like a Ricky Starks. But your look is different. I mean, it's almost like Jungle Boy if you took wrestling seriously. We'll edit that out. No, we're not going to. But I'm sure you're all good friends, and then he's wonderful. I'm sure he's a lovely, lovely boy, and I never missed an episode of 90210. So rest in peace, Luke. Anyway, so where do you come up with profit from? I mean, listen, I know it's not your given name. I'm not blowing away your given name here. This is we keep kayfabe. If you want to blow it, you can blow it. But I'm not doing it for you. But what is the profit about? Were you inspired by some divine? Do you carry Gabriel or the angel Jibril's horn? I mean, what's going on here?
Well, I'll try not to be long-winded with that answer, because you said something that was kind of interesting in saying that it was not my given name, which obviously is the case. It doesn't say Jeremy Prophet on my birth certificate. It does say Jeremy, just doesn't say Prophet. But in doing a bit of research, things tell me that Jeremy actually does mean prophet, but that wasn't anything that I knew when I came up with the name. I'm a very spiritual guy. You can call me a religious guy, whatever it might be. But the thing is that my very first show, we needed a name for me. I was just Jeremy, just came out of wrestling school, happy to be there. And the name I wanted to go with was The Prophecy. I wanted it to be The Prophecy, or at least for that to be the nickname. And unfortunately, here in Quebec, which is majority French, they don't really have a translation for that. And the announcer was kind of iffy on it. So he said, how about we just call you The Prophet? And I was just like, sure, whatever. I'm just happy to be here wrestling. So I was The Prophet. But then after about a year of doing that, a promoter pitched me an idea, a promoter by the name of Ernie Todd, who's promoting in Manitoba, another province in the middle of Canada. And he said, I kind of want to make you more relatable to the fans. So I like the fact that your name is Jeremy. There's not a lot of Jeremys in wrestling. So I think we should call you Jeremy Prophet. And for whatever reason, I'm just like, I like the sound of that. And it stuck. So I went from being Jeremy to being the Prophet to being Jeremy Prophet, kind of the best of both worlds. And yeah, I mean, I love the name. I wouldn't have had it any other way. My real name, my wrestling name, what's in a name? Basically, you get the same guy in and out of the ring. That's what I am. And, I'm very proud to be someone who, like a prophet, speaks the truth. Unfortunately, not everyone can handle the truth.
All right. I like that. Is your finisher called the Prophecy Fulfilled?
No, but it probably should be.
Or the Revelation? It's anything I give you here.
I did use the Revelation. I used that for one of my moves. I did.
Nice. Yeah, as you should. I mean, the eschatology is a little bit wordy. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. Maybe in French it does. The Armageddon, the apocalypse. I mean, it's really unlimited with what you can do. Welcome to Tartarus. I mean,
one of the things that not a lot of people know in talking about French and religion and whatnot is a lot of our curse words in French are actually derived from religious connotology, religious terms. Like he had mentioned, he wrestled a team called the Tabernacle team, which basically would translate, if I were to translate that in English, it would be, the F&T team, trying to keep it PG for your listeners here and your monetization.
We don't monetize, and we already blew it, so fuck, you're free.
Cool. So tabernacle actually comes from tabernacle, which why they use that as a swear term here in Quebec, I don't know. They don't use it in France, where the language actually originated from, but here, that's pretty much the equivalent of the F word, saying tabernacle, which comes from tabernacle. And all the other swearing, it all derives from elements of religion, of Catholicism.
Well, I know Mandu is my god, and I know Sacre Bleu is sacred blue. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, that's it. Like you said, Sacre Bleu. Sacre Bleu. The sacré is like sacred. But for whatever reason, that's a swear word here. Like esti is something that someone says here. Esti is the equivalent of like goddamn. But esti is actually, would translate to like the host. It's often used in the Christian Bible, the host or the Holy Spirit. Esti is something else that they say here. And I could go through a laundry list of all the other ones.
Well, you're biblical people. Even you, your best beer is El Fin du Monde, the end of the world. So come on. It's probably not your best beer, but it's my favorite. Thomas, you're sitting there. I know you've got things on your mind. I know you want to step in, and then really you are the official co-host of this show. This is the Gospel of Thomas, and you have a prophet here. So, listen, I tag you in.
I'm taking it all in. I'm taking in the French lesson, listening on the background here. I'm just going to chime in along the way. I don't ask for much. You know me.
I know you didn't ask for much, but I'm suspicious of that because usually people do ask for much, and normally I'm inclined to say yes if it's reasonable because it's not hard to say. Sometimes you just say yes, no. All right. So I was joking in the beginning. I'm still joking, but we have a president who mentioned that Canada, before he was the president the second time around, would be the 51st state, and that Justin Trudeau would make a fine governor, maybe, but he'd prefer Wayne Gretzky. Well, Justin Trudeau since resigned. I'm not even going into all that. But do Canadians think that was funny? Were they insulted? Or did they just go, whatever?
No, so it's something that they've taken pretty badly here, both in the media and word on the street. Without getting into my own personal feelings on that, which we could maybe get into, it's generally not been very well received here. But you have to understand that here under a liberal government, one that was pretty popular up until recently, a lot of people are not in line politically with what the Republicans are putting on the table or have been for many years. So the idea of the 51st state has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, definitely the media. In fact, they've actually assembled a council where they are putting together a strategy of how to combat a potential, call it what you will, hostile takeover. If they're going to try to turn us into the next Puerto Rico and just, crush us economically, which Trump has said he's going to use economical force. They've put together a committee because we have premiers. That's basically what our governors are called here. They're called premiers. So each province has one. And they were totally not on the same page. Different responses from all of them. Danielle Smith, who's the premier of Alberta, the famous Alberta where the Hearts are from, she actually got a one-on-one meeting with President Trump, which other than Justin Trudeau, I don't think anyone else has had the opportunity to do that. And that was facilitated by Kevin O'Leary, who you might know from Shark Tank. Kevin O'Leary, who's actually from Montreal, just like me. And he facilitated that meeting. And she basically came back to Canada and told the rest of Parliament, look, President Trump is very serious about making Canada into the 51st state and using economic force to cripple Canada's economy. Then you have different responses. You have Doug Ford out of Ontario saying we have to fight, we have to retaliate with everything, with all the resources that we have that could potentially go to the United States. We need to match the same kind of tariffs, match them equally, and basically saying, like, we are at war. You guys don't realize this, but we are at war right now. Then you have the premier of Prince Edward Island, tiny little island there. I've wrestled there a couple of times, smallest of all provinces. And their strategy was to rent a bus and go to some of the neighboring states to explain why supporting this tariff war would not be beneficial for Americans. So it was kind of a mess in terms of the premiers just not being on the same page. So now what they've done is they've made a council on U.S.-Canadian relations. And the idea of the council is to have a united front and figure out what is the best approach. The council is actually being headed by a guy by the name of Jean Charest, who was actually the premier of here in Quebec, where I'm from, many, many years ago. And Arlene Dickinson, who ironically, I brought him up earlier, Kevin O'Leary, she was on the Canadian version of Shark Tank, which is called Dragon's Den, opposite O'Leary. And now she's opposite him in politics, which for someone like me who's a fan of those kinds of shows with investment capital and venture capital, it's kind of entertaining to see these two characters and entrepreneurs now getting into politics and being totally diametrically opposed. But if I can give my own thoughts on it,
of course,
I actually think that there is some merit to this uniting of Canada and the United States of America. I think that there's actually a lot of good that could be explored from it. I think, merging the currencies and exploring the possibilities of maybe, improving the healthcare system. We all share North America.
Who's the healthcare system, yours or ours?
Yeah, that's the question I had. Like, well, I see a lot of things on the internet. You never know what's true, but it seems like it's going to end up being a downgrade for someone. And then my thought as a greedy American is just, what does this cost me? Or how does this benefit me in any way, shape, or form? But
I can answer that.
I just don't understand the point of throwing out something so drastic with a whim, like a thought off the top of your head, without having an actual plan and process on how that would go. But I'll listen.
Well, sometimes you can speak things into existence and then see it come to fruition. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the story of when the first satellite was launched into space, it was, we don't know how to bring it back, but let's just get it there so we can say we were the first that got it there and then hope that the technology catches up to it. So sometimes it's that fake it till you make it kind of approach. But I do think it's at least gotten people thinking. It's definitely done a lot of good for us here in Canada to have this kind of pressure, as messed up as that is to say. We've now decided, okay, if this really is going to happen and there are going to be these tariffs coming from the United States, we need to have more, call it what you will, free trade within Canada. We need to now, because we do have interprovincial tariffs of their own, and it makes it more appealing for Canadians to buy from Americans. Because there's so much confusion in terms of just one end of the country to the other in terms of getting products and the pricing and whatnot. So this has now kind of regulated all that. It's gotten all of our premiers on the same page. And they said it's going to actually generate billions of revenue for Canada, billions of dollars in revenue for Canada, because they're going to just keep the business within the country for the most part because of this fear. Again, goes against my own beliefs that I think that if we look at this objectively, there could be a lot of good that would come out of Canada and the United States. I even say it like this, just so the layman's understand, that a lot of the points brought up by President Trump, it makes it look like Canada kind of has this sugar daddy relationship with the United States. My countrymen will probably call me a traitor for saying that, but realistically, you guys have military power. You guys have...
That's the same way Trump presents everything about every country, is every country needs to bow down to America for whatever reason. And then in any case, you can make that argument for the most part. But
true, it's the Triple H of countries.
What I'll say is this. I'm a kind of person who has an open mind, and I don't always confuse the messenger with the message, because you can have a faulty messenger, but there can still be some grains of truth and some stuff that makes you go, hey, that kind of makes sense. We just never looked at it.
Hold on 1 second here. You just really botched an opportunity. You should have said something like, don't blame the prophet for the prophecy. Not the message for the messenger. I'm just saying, if you do it again, first of all, I've seen this movie before, so I know what the answer from Canada is, and that is Wolverine, Mutant X, and the Alpha Flight. Clearly, that's where this is going. This I know. But it's interesting what you say. Listen, I am entirely for the two countries merging if it's voluntary. That's fine. I think that Canada has been the greatest neighbor maybe any country has ever had. At least ever since like 1812ish. So it's a good relationship, and yes, we've got the military power, but if we go somewhere, you guys come with us, and that's important. Troops in Afghanistan, troops in Iraq, I'm sure none of you wanted to be certainly in Iraq, and you did. And that's one of the reasons I wear a Ukraine hat, not just because I'm anti-Russian, I am, but because Ukraine is one of the few countries that sent combat troops to both Afghanistan and Iraq. And they're a little country that couldn't afford it, so they supported us. I support them. But it's interesting that you're saying, again, don't the profit isn't necessarily the important. Don't get lost with the profit when the prophecy might be okay. And I'm a little surprised that is your perception. Do you have any idea, if it's like third, 50-50, if you're like very much in the minority position? I mean, I realize I'm asking you to speak for, 25 million people here over, let's say Canada wouldn't be the 51st state. Canada would probably have to be number 51 through, 57 at least. Because
that's my biggest gripe with it. Like we know how big Puerto Rico is. Like, okay, that's fine. Like it's this big, but like, damn, Canada shits on us when it comes to size.
But Canada is a big landmass. That's what's deceiving about it, is that if you think about it, and you can feel free to do your geographical research, but Canada really only has 2 big cities in each province, and the rest is just land. So we might look like this juggernaut, but believe it or not, New York, I don't know if it's the state or the city, but New York, I'm told, has a larger population than all of Canada. So
it would be the whole state, and when all the commuters came in during the day. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I've been to New York and I've been in some traffic there, and I could probably believe that just the city alone has as much of a population as here.
It probably feels that way during the workday. And you're just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Greenland, which would of course be 58. But I mean, aside from being a land, I mean, yes, it's a landmass, but in all of that land, there's resources. There's probably lithium. There's probably hydrogen. There's probably cobalt. There's probably oil. There's probably gas. There's probably still gold. There's also polar bears, and there are people. They're Inuits. There's Ojibwe. So there are people. Neither one of our countries has a great reputation of dealing with our first settlers. I know I hear they're called Native Americans. There, you call First Nations, and so I'll just say our first settlers to here. Our first colonists who colonized no one unless you believe the Atlanteans or the reptilians were here first. So I don't know exactly where I'm going with that, but I think I started with what do you think the division of opinion is among Canadians?
So I think definitely my opinion is in the minority, but to touch on a point that Tom, can I call him Tommy? Is that okay?
Thomas? It's just
Thomas? Thomas. Okay. My apologies. Thomas. To touch on a point that Thomas made, it is coming across to a lot of people here as it's kind of this bullying, forced, hostile takeover. And that's what's really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But for me personally, I can look past that because there are some objective points that are brought up in terms of the unbalance between what we provide and what the United States provides for us. And that's why I said before, I see it as this kind of this sugar daddy relationship where, in terms of military power, in terms of oil and other resources, it's that, the majority of the balance is on the American side, and we're fortunate to be able to have them as such a good partner. But, it has to be looked at objectively of what are you guys getting in return? And I don't even think there should be this divide. I think it actually is a good idea on paper if we were to all be under the same banner, if it were to be more of a consecrated marriage as opposed to this kind of sugar daddy thing where, we'll watch our backs and, hopefully you guys will be there for us. No, we should all be part of, the same union, a united North America. I think we should all be on the same page. I talk to guys like you. Hey, you guys could be my neighbors. We're no different. Just because I live in a place that's maybe slightly colder, pretty much right across the board, like culturally, we're all the same people. So, we're all Americans. Just because, we're not in the United States part of America, we're still all Americans here in North America. And I think it's something that probably should have been looked at a lot sooner. I just think the only thing that rubs people the wrong way is the hostile tone of it. But if you can look past that, it's something worth considering.
A little bit more velvet glove, a little less braggadocious.
Wait till Trump finds out how many immigrants go to Canada too.
Well, that is part of it.
I might be speaking a different tone. Is that what they are? Therefore,
but that's totally part of it. Because when this started, and it's something that's gotten lost in the discussion, President Trump had said that the tariffs would be imposed on Canada, and it's not to conquer Canada. It was the tariffs will be imposed if Canada doesn't do something about their border situation. If they don't regulate the borders better in terms of, I guess, allowing illegals to flood into the United States. So they have to tighten up the borders, and then tariffs won't be imposed. And from what I heard, it led to a discussion. This is what was said on CNN in an interview with Justin Trudeau. It led to a discussion with him and Trump when he went down to Mar-a-Lago, where he said, well, I'll make you a deal. How about you give us, the Democrat states? You give us California and give us Vermont, and we'll take care of doing that for you. And he kind of apparently said it as a joke. And he said that Trump went silent and things kind of became uncomfortable. And he said, no, I have a better idea. How about Canada become the 51st state? And then maybe we can make something happen. And that's where this all came from. And the tweet came out, and it's been dominating the news here ever since.
I think in reality, it's just red meat that's being thrown out there to distract us from other things that are, possibly more important.
There's so many things going on in the world when we started with this. It's
did it feel different, Thomas, when you were in Mexico City, that you were, 500, 600 miles away from the Gulf of America versus the Gulf of Mexico? Did it feel different?
No, I mean, more different in the sense of different side of Mexico, or
I don't know. Were the breezes different? Did the sea air?
I mean, Mexico City's in the mountains. But yeah, Mexico City's in the mountains, so like the altitude's crazy. I mean, I'm not the fucking most athletic guy, but whoa, brother! As soon as I get out of the airport, I was breathing heavy. You're sucking wind up there, but yeah, it's definitely a different vibe in comparison to like the beach towns that I normally go to. But it's a lot of culture, super international, more so than most places, like more international, like New York City would be, as opposed to Tampa. So as opposed to, going to Cancun and Playa del Carmen, where it's normally like a beach town vacation for people where it's cold. Like, this is just people from everywhere. And a lot of people just live there. It's wild, but it's a great time.
Well, Mexico City's a huge city. There's like 10 million people in Mexico City, 20 million people, something like that.
Huge, crazy traffic. You've never seen such traffic for such a little.
Well, the Gulf of America is not as offensive to me because, as Jeremy pointed out, it's all the Americas, right down to Tierra del Fuego and, in Patagonia. I mean, and all the way up to, beyond Baffin Bay and James Landing and all points north. It is the Americas. And so Gulf of America, I mean, I understand was meant to be sort of obnoxious and the United States of America, but
the Gulf of Mexico and Canada conversation both fall onto the same line of, don't we have anything more important? Like, it's an amazing topic. Don't get me wrong. I'm not poo-pooing it, but like, there's so much real shit that's happening in the world, and we're fighting over Greenland.
Such as Greenland. We need Greenland. That's what I wanted to find out from Thomas. You're speaking for Mexico. Jeremy, you're speaking for Canada, and I'm speaking for the United States. Nobody's speaking for Denmark here. So, and no one's speaking for the semi-autonomous folks of Greenland. But what are your feelings about Greenland, and perhaps that being the 51st state, or maybe the 52nd, as you will?
Well, I mean, if you believe everything that you read on the X these days, it seems like there was a fairly hostile conversation between President Trump and the Prime Minister of Denmark. Her name escapes me at the moment. Where it basically turned into, you will never get Greenland, we will never give it to you. And President Trump allegedly saying, well, we're going to take it from you, or something along those lines. And it's pretty touchy when you consider that Denmark is a member of NATO, and it could turn into something pretty violent pretty quick. I don't know what to say about that, because, I mean, yeah, maybe there is some merit to Greenland being of benefit, but then you also can't just go and, take another country by force. So, and it's not only that. I mean, if you look at it, this whole conquest thing that started with the newly arrived president, you got the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, whatever you want to call it. The Panama Canal also has been a hot topic of conversation,
right? Because
the United States built it and now feels that it's being misused by a lot of countries. In terms of the tolls and the profit that Panama has been able to make off of it. So that's been a touchy subject. Then you throw in Greenland, then you throw in Canada. This is a lot of conquest. This is really a lot, and right out of the gate, because we're barely into the first month of this. So wow, who knows how this one's going to end.
Right. He should not have been using the Village People's YMCA. He should have been using Jack White's Conquest as a song. The thing about Greenland is that it's mostly a giant glacier. I don't know what's under that glacier, but I know if you get what's under that glacier, you move the glacier, and that's a bad thing. Other than that, I'm sure there's some things that are useful, but so all of my geopolitical knowledge on this next point comes from season 2 of the Netflix show, The Diplomat. So it is only as good as that show's research was. So I have no idea if this is true or not. I do know that there is a nuclear sub base in Scotland, and that the Scottish people do not want it. I know this from a BBC show called Vigil, so which I consider to probably be a better research show than The Diplomat, based on my complex algorithm of grading TV shows. And it's the only nuclear submarine base in the Atlantic once you get past basically, Spain, and so between that base in Scotland, which the Scottish don't want, period, and the Scottish also want independence. There's a very strong Scottish independence movement that just won't go, and eventually people tend to get their independence, especially since England is in a very bad shape, and they're sort of going through their own sort of, we're populist but we're liberal, we're populist but we're liberal, we hate foreigners here, but we like foreigners everywhere else. Kind of, they're in a sort of a confused, and I'm afraid to ask my British friends, but I really don't know what the answers are going to be. But the point being is, if that base is lost, according to the now president in the show, The Diplomat, who was the vice president during most of the season, that if you get rid of that, there's nothing between the United States and Russian nuclear submarine bases except the Atlantic Ocean. But Greenland and parts of Canada, you have a couple nuclear bases there, submarines, whatever, and all of a sudden you've got more points of interception and more points of detection. Now, I don't think Trump is all that crafty. I don't think his team is all that crafty. I think John Bolton might have thought about that in the last administration. I think that Milley or Mad Dog Mattis or whatever their names were might have thought about it. I just think he's shooting shit and thinks that there's gas and oil under there. However, there could be strategic reasons for both of these maneuvers, which I think could be, if this was the thing, you could probably negotiate getting naval bases there, and rent them just like we do in other places, and create little towns and economies, around the world without actually doing a conquest. Yeah, people will still say you're an empire, but it's not the same. However, I already buried the lead in that I don't think that it's this tactical. I would love to think it is. I don't like the tactics towards the tacticality, if that's a word, but I don't know what else would you be bullying a friend? I mean, what happens in NATO Article 1 if 2 NATO countries go to war? Who does the rest of NATO come to the aid of?
It's not supposed to go down like that.
Well, it's not supposed to go down like that, but every now and then Barry Windham turns on the horseman.
I mean, this sounds more logical than just randomly looking to acquire land as a United States landowner. I mean, if you're going to do what the feds do and charge you with a million things and kind of work your way down, you go from we're going to invade and take everything to just let us build a naval base. I can be okay with that. But if he's just passing the notes along from the last administration on what was in his little top secret folder, he goes about a strange way of doing it. It's unjarring.
I mean, I kind of think that there could be some merit to the having something to buffer potential Russian threats coming in. But at the same time, it's still going about it in a very aggressive kind of way. But I think that's just President Trump dipping into his old business tactics. And it's a typical business tactic of you start with the biggest ask and then, you meet somewhere in the middle. So a lot of this, I think, is that. I think it's coming to the table and saying, I want this, I want this, I want this. This is what I'm going to do to get it. And then the negotiation process begins, which, I mean, it's a very aggressive start to it. But I think that it'll get people thinking. And we'll see if he's someone who takes no for an answer, or if we'll all be at war, as scary of a thought as that is, a year from now.
Fun. All right, Thomas, I don't want to step, but usually you have a list of topics that you want to go through. I actually did I wrote a list of topics just in case. I love
that for us, because I came unprepared today. It's like you knew.
Oh, this is great. So one of this. So I'm gonna get back to things that maybe matter a little bit more. But this is important too. I mean, your last name is Prophet. Your first name apparently is Prophet, and you said that you're a spiritual person. So do you have any particular prophets or prophecies that are near and dear to you, and or that have played into your character or any promos, and those answers can be the same or completely different?
Well, you kind of threw me for a loop there and saying played into my character and whatnot, because I was going to more talk about real life. Because one of the things,
or you can go back and forth.
Yeah, sure, for sure. One of the things that I was always raised with in terms of prophets is the story of the prophet Elijah in the Bible, that there was Elisha and Elijah. And this was something that my mother, who always emphasized this story to me, my mother, who unfortunately, her son that she had before me didn't live beyond, about a year and a half. And my mother had me fairly late in life, had him fairly late in life too, and didn't know if she'd be able to have another boy. And then, she prayed for this miracle to happen. And lo and behold, I came along about 2 years later. So I'm kind of something of a miracle baby. And she always said it was kind of like Elijah and Elisha, that Elijah stuck by Elisha's side, and you knew that when the blessing was going to come, he was going to get it, and it would be a double portion of blessing. So it's something my mother, even to this day, God bless her, always likes to remind me of, that I am this miracle child, at least in her eyes. And it's a story that is, near and dear to my heart. That's probably the closest thing in terms of biblical prophets that I really carry with me on a day-to-day basis, carry with me into the ring, that I'm here to make the most of this life, this borrowed time that we have, to be amongst the lucky ones that actually get a chance to live, not the, billions and trillions of eggs and sperm cells that never meet and get to actually live this wonderful adventure we call life.
You know how bad I am for someone who has, for the last 5 years or so, has done a show that has a lot to do with spirituality, esotericism, comparative mythology, whatever. One man's mythology is another man's religion. All I know about the prophet Elijah is that we leave a seat open for him, I think, at the Passover Seder. I'm not even sure if that's the right meal. So tell me a little bit, what is the prophet Elijah known for, other than standing? This is the first I heard, or at least heard and remembered, that there's an Elijah and Elisha, which says more about me than you, of course. But what is Elijah best known for? Again, I should know this, but I don't.
Well, yeah, that exact story, because Elisha was the prophet. He had the blessing, and God said that I'm going to take you up to heaven. And when I do, the blessing is going to be passed on to the next prophet, which is Elijah. But he didn't say the moment when it was going to happen. So that's why Elijah was kind of tethered to the side of Elisha, saying, I'm going to be there when this happens. I'm not going to leave your side, because that one moment I decide to, that's when I'm going to miss out on it. And it's a great moral for life, that, you have to be ready when opportunity comes. You gotta stay ready. One of the things I always say, I even literally put it on a t-shirt, is I was ready yesterday. That, like, some people say, oh, I'm ready. I got to get ready when that call comes, when that big opportunity presents itself. And my whole thing is that I'm always ready. I know that Matt Cardona says that, and obviously a lot more people know who he is than know who I am. But I'm that guy who's ready yesterday. I'm that guy. I don't need to have an opportunity dangling in front of me, or $1 million contract, to look the part, act the part, be ready to pick up the slack and whatever responsibility goes along with the glitz and glamour that I want to achieve. So it's something that, I live my life with that, and I can totally relate to it and bring that to every aspect of my own career, my own day-to-day life.
If either of you know this is fine. But, we, meaning the Jews, I don't know if it extends to other religions, are supposed to keep a seat open for Elijah. Set table, for, again, I'm going to say it's a Seder. The Last Supper was a Seder. For all I know, I might be wrong about which holiday it is. But that would imply that, he's sort of a ghost walking among us, or a spirit walking among us, who might show up in some corporeal form at any time. Is that part of, because that sounds a little Jesus-y? I mean, could he have been a precursor, a proto-Jesus, or is he more like a Lazarus, that he was raised by divinity and we just sort of lost track of him, but he's going to come back at an important time?
I mean, it's definitely food for thought there, but there's a lot that repeats itself. If you compare, Old Testament, New Testament, I'm fortunate to have had a Jewish father and a Christian mother. So, it's fortunate to give me both perspectives, and to be able to interact. Like, I'm a guy, you see what I look like. I kind of fit in everywhere, and I fit in nowhere at the same time. Being biracial and raised in a dual religious home. So it allows me to see things from both perspectives. It allows me to see race, religion, and be a very open-minded individual to all of those things. When it comes down to it, look, the Old Testament, the Torah, barely any difference there. It's only when Jesus comes into the picture that people have differing opinions. And to be fair, the Christian, I'm trying to get the right denomination here. I want to say the Protestant Christian Bible, if you will, possibly came under a lot of revisions throughout centuries and centuries ago in history. So it's tough to know what to believe, really.
This I know. This part I know because of this show. Not this one in particular, but actually revisions started almost immediately. And I mean, so you have your King James Bible, the Catholic Bible, but the Eastern Orthodox Bible has like four more gospels than your King James. The Ethiopian Bible has like 11 or 12 more books than that, including like the books of Enoch, which are fantastic, by the way. I mean, basically the Eternals except good.
And for all your Mormon listeners out there, possibly in the state of Utah and the surroundings, they even have another testament as well. I believe the book of Moroni. I think it's
right. And there are others too. So it's even in the first and second century. I mean, and then there was this offshoot, the Gnostics, and they sort of said, this Jesus really doesn't, it seems a whole lot nicer than that his father. So his father, that can't be right. He's like this thing called the demiurge, which is like this sort of like insane creator God, but he's not the God. It's just the God sort of took their eye off the ball or was looking for man to, learn a lesson. And he didn't have angels working for him. He had archons working for him. And the chief archon might have been someone called the Abraxas, who has a lot of the same qualities of somebody, that we now call Satan or Lucifer. So it's all really, I mean, even at the very beginning, it's really, really interesting. Cheap plug for me, I don't know when, so this show gets edited and published by Anthony Missionary Thomas at Wrestling Soup. So he gets to it when he gets to it. This week, we're recording this January 27th, 2025. I'm having the second visitation of Professor Richard Spence, emeritus from University of Idaho, who actually did the great courses on the occult and many other things as well. So a second, and we talk about the Essenes and the Cathars and the Templars and various specifics. And in that, he really gets deep into it. So if you want to hear more about that, but not from me, from an actual professor of 35 years who's done like 5 different great courses, check out that show. Check out all the shows on Garden Doom. It's freaking amazing. I'm going to shut up now because you and Thomas are both biracial. That is by no means unusual these days, but I saw his eye light up. And because I'm trying to steal him from our mutual friend to make him my best friend and not his original friend's best friend, I feel like, the more I read his mind, the closer I get to complete friend theft here. So, Thomas, take it away.
I don't know. I don't know. I do wear my emotions on my face. I know this is not a visual medium, but it's funny that you caught that. It didn't. I grew up biracial and I find it, I'm curious from a Canadian aspect, if it's equally as bothersome to you that every once in a while, and for me more so in this last election, much like the 2008 election when Obama was running, people are still baffled that the idea of like interracial people exist and how they're just supposed to claim a side and all of a sudden you're this or you're that and you're playing both sides or whatever the case may be. I'm just curious about, not to dive too deep into your personal world, but like your childhood growing up, real life, how it affects you, if ever. To me, it's very seldom. And I know I'm rambling right now, asking the longest question ever, but like the more I forget about it, the quicker it's reminded in my life. And I'll let you answer before I dive into some more examples.
Well, I guess it's like I said, I can kind of fit in everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. Mm-hmm. I can give a couple of examples of that. Like, for example, when I went to elementary school, it was a predominantly Black elementary school that I was in. So I was the white kid because I was, 10 shades lighter than the majority of the people there. When I went to college, I had a lot of classes with, I actually had a religion class, which was quite an eye-opening experience because here we have a lot of people who are very sheltered and within their own communities. So now having a religion class, world religions, and you have people who obviously all believe in different things. You have Muslims, you have Jews, you have Christians, you have agnostics, atheists, Buddhists, you have Sikhs, you have Hindus, all kind of sharing the same space, and everyone kind of clinging to their beliefs, and some being a little more open-minded, some being closed-minded. It was the kind of thing where I'm like, look, I was raised in this sort of dual religion household where I'm open-minded to all of this kind of stuff. And then I had like the Jews wanting to claim me, saying, like, oh, well, you know, your father was Jewish, even though that technically it goes through the mother. You're one of us. You should be siding with us. And I'm like, well, hold on. I'm on the side of logic here. That's what I'm on the side of, because I'm a firm believer that I'm not going to hate somebody, dislike somebody, have any negative feelings because they choose to believe something. Because if y'all were raised in, you know, Pakistan, you would be, you know, wearing hijabs and praising Allah. So it's really it's this nature and nurture kind of thing where I think being who I am, where I'm from, I can just have this open-minded perspective and be like, hey, you know, it's you're a product of your environment. And here in Canada, I feel that we don't have overt racism. I think that, especially where I'm from in Montreal, it's very multicultural. But what we do have is certain divisions. Like here, for example, in Quebec, we have an English-French division. Nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with what you believe in. Just if you have a different language that you speak on the street, you say hi to somebody and they respond, ah ben bonjour, comment ça va? There's this friction. I'm actually from a place where they wanted to separate from Canada. Not a lot of people know that, but Quebec as a province went to a referendum in my lifetime in 1996, and it finished 51% to 49% no, which meant that Quebec stayed part of Canada. Had it been the other way around, Quebec would have become its own country. So there is that kind of friction here based on language. And wrestling has thankfully allowed me to travel throughout the country. I've wrestled in every single province. And I do see some examples of, like in the middle of Canada, in the Saskatchewans, Manitoba, there's a divide between the Indigenous First Nations people and, call it what you will, the white folk in Canada. That there's this, you know, oh, well, they're natives. They, you know, they drink a lot. They're criminals. There's this sentiment against them throughout the middle of Canada where there's that kind of a divide. It's like a very low key kind of racism that I've picked up on. And it's one of the things, if I can just even, you know, I'm getting away from the scope of your question and being a little long-winded, but it's one of the unique things about Canada, because even if you go further west to like British Columbia is almost more like an Asian city than it is a Canadian city, because there's a huge influx of people that come over from Asia, huge Asian population. And there's a bit of a resentment again from the locals, from the white folk out there towards the Asian community. Same thing in Toronto. Toronto has a huge Asian community, a huge Indian community as well. And there's this kind of, we even had a big controversy here with one of our great Canadian entertainment figures, Don Cherry, who was like one of the foremost commentators on hockey in the NHL, where he said, oh, I'm seeing a lot of these, I guess they must be immigrants, but they're not wearing poppies for November 11th, for Remembrance Day? Yeah, Remembrance Day. And so, again, it's this kind of thing of like, there is, but it's not overt. It's just kind of low key and said and accepted. And they unfortunately don't know the error of their ways. It's just, I think, for who I am, I see people as human beings. Doesn't matter the color of your skin, doesn't matter what you were raised with. If I was raised like that, I'd probably think the same thing. But unfortunately, not everyone has that mentality.
Makes sense. Makes too much sense. Maybe Canada should just be another state of the Americas. Come on.
Yeah, we're all Americans. We all put on our
Montreal.
pants every morning, one leg at a time.
We hate everyone.
Well, assuming you change your pants from day to day and we're not cartoon characters. All right. So in this country, about a month and a half ago, we were all distracted by UFO and drone frenzy. However, it's still sort of going on. And some of the major figures in UFO-dom have basically been shown to be, well, frauds. But still it goes on. There's people posting, hey, I saw a UFO over San Diego. And you know, of course, the only person in a city of whatever, 3 million people, whatever it is, that saw it. And like someone else shows a picture, oh, I found it. And it's clearly an airplane. You know, the guy just, you know, overexposed the lights. And then you see it in different, it's got, you know, you can see wings, you can see the tail lights, you can see the flashing lights. You know, I'm of the position that if there's interstellar craft, they actually don't need headlights and running lights and lights to avoid being crash into helicopters and radio towers. But in any event, was there UFO and drone fever in Canada? Did it catch? Did one of our stupid diseases catch in the Great White North?
No, it's really something I can say like unanimously. No, I don't hear people talk about it. I remember there was one day I went on X and it's all everyone was posting about were these drones, and no one's saying what the drones are doing and why they're there, but people are seeing them everywhere. It's really not a thing here. I can't even think of once where someone said there's some kind of an anomaly in the skies. I can tell you in my own personal experience, the only thing I've ever kind of witnessed was this one time we were driving, I believe it was in the Maritimes of Canada. So we were on a long road trip out to Nova Scotia. I'm actually going back there in a month's time. It's about a 14-hour drive. If you cut through Maine, you can maybe save about 4 or 5 hours, but we don't always have that luxury. And I remember driving late at night and the whole sky just lit up. And I looked, the two guys that were in the back seat, they were asleep. My co-pilot, the guy in the not the driver's seat, but the passenger seat, I looked at him, I'm like, are you seeing this? And he's like, yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm like, do you have any idea what this is? He's like, no, I have no idea. Because the whole sky just kind of lit up. It became this like bright orange. And this is probably at about 2 or 3 in the morning. And then it just kind of went back to normal night. Did that for about, I'd say maybe about a minute and a half. So that's the only real weird anomaly I've been a part of. But I just dismiss that as maybe it's the aurora borealis, maybe it's the northern lights as they call it. But that was the only thing that was really weird. Other than that, UFOs, we don't hear much about it. Not really. I guess they just don't fly over Canada.
I have to be honest with you. If I experienced that, I would probably be driving towards that in hopes that I found little baby Clark Kent.
I mean, it was a one way kind of road, so there wasn't really any way we could get to it.
The prophet doesn't let that stop him. Traffic rules don't stop the prophet.
Well, if you knew how many demerit points I had on my driver's license, you might rethink that quote.
Fair enough. Another stupid craze in the U.S. and maybe beyond, but I'm not sure how far beyond, cryptocurrency. Has cryptocurrency made its way into Landia?
Oh, yeah. We even had one of the biggest crypto fraudsters from here in Canada.
Nice.
And I think he's still on the run. I think we actually had 2, and one of them he got caught by a gang of guys, and they gave him a very bad beating. And in an ironic twist of events, I think he actually won his lawsuit on the investors who he frauded and who beat the shit out of him, for lack of a better term. But yeah, cryptocurrency, it's a thing here. I've talked to a lot of people who I have intellectual discussions with. I value their opinion. And unanimously, they all believe that cryptocurrency is going to be the wave of the future, which is surprising because I think it's actually something that has been used to scam people over and over again in many different ways. So it's something people have to be careful with because you never know what's real and what's not. But yeah, not as big of a craze here, but definitely becoming more and more.
Right. Don't take your investment advice from a podcast where we're talking about UFOs as well. By the way, PJ, who's not here, could tell us about crypto, and he'll say that Bitcoin is very different than other cryptocurrencies, and that some cryptocurrencies are worth something and a lot are not. And there's a lot of scams because it's hard to tell what the difference is. Now, I have to be honest, I don't understand cryptocurrency. And I emphasize that because that just means I don't understand it. It doesn't mean there isn't an understanding to it. It just means I don't know what it is. Though I've spoken to enough people, and PJ's tried to explain to me that, it's all regulated by this blockchain and this, that, and the other thing. And I sort of get it that there's a limited finite number of coins that get mined. So you've created scarcity and demand. It's all tracked. I know that the government, you can't money launder because every coin is you can show where it's gone. I'm not sure how much I believe that. I also read a lot of Yuval Noah Harari, who's sort of a futurist, and he pointed out that a lot of times the government owns the blockchains, and if the government owns, or any government owns 51% of that blockchain, they control everything. So while I don't recall having this particular conversation with PJ, I do recall, not with him, but with other people, that some of the same people who were singing the praises of cryptocurrency, say 6, 7 years ago or 5 years ago, about a year ago, started changing their tune and saying, no, you need cash. The government wants you to get cryptocurrency. And so it was like the libertarians before cryptocurrency was the libertarian dream. Now it's like, no, the government's going to track it. And actually, the producer, Mish, I had a conversation with him years ago. I said, as soon as the government figures out a way to tax it, the bottom's going to fall out. And it pretty much has, except on a few that are, I guess, Bitcoin must be under some sort of different algorithm or whatever. And there might be others who have certain investors who believe in it, that is the full faith and credit of, I don't know, I'll just make Elon Musk or Bezos. Or I have no idea if they really believe in these things are associated with them or not. But that's a very long exposition on Jeff doesn't understand cryptocurrency.
It's so crazy because it's really, in crypto in my world, it depends on who you ask. The person I trust the most from a business aspect has been on the Bitcoin dick since day one. And I still refuse to buy in, more or less. But he's also the person I go to when I need to buy something in Bitcoin. So it's good to have someone who's in the loop, but I'm not invested. I also, on the other end of that spectrum, is like, I had a buddy of mine that like had his whole life savings in Coinbase. He's never getting a fucking dollar back. So it's where you're at in what part of the process, who you believe, and in the end, the little guy gets fucked. So
yeah. I mean, you almost kind of beat me to the punchline there, Jeff, because I was going to say, if PJ is the expert on it, him being South African, he's probably got the direct line to Elon. So obviously he'd know a little bit more there. But when it comes down to it, with Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, I kind of just see it as a bubble. I see it as, and with any bubble, the bubble's always going to burst. And I think that there is a lot of opportunity, again, just using my tertiary knowledge of it, a lot of opportunity to get in on it and hopefully be able to get out before that crash happens. It's scary to think that people would put their life savings into it. I mean, no one would walk up to a roulette table and put their life savings on the roll of the ball. But people are doing that with Bitcoin when they themselves don't have all of the knowledge of how it's going to develop. So for me, like, that's the only benefit I would see to it, is being, get in, get out, and hopefully you don't lose your shirt and your family's life savings in the process.
I think that makes sense. Again, don't take financial advice from a podcast that is adjacent to wrestling and talking about demons and ghosts and werewolves. All right. I want to ask you a little bit about some of your guilty pleasures. And I don't mean anything prurient or scandalous. So I'll give you my examples. Despite the fact that I am a 56-year-old crusty white guy who is actually 10 shades paler than most white people, and watch professional wrestling and have since I'm like 6 years old, and and all of that good stuff. Two of my guilty pleasures are, I will not give up the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or the Real Housewives of New Jersey on Bravo. So I have never missed an episode. I've never missed a season. I used to watch all of them. I gave up all the others, but I will not give up those two. So those are my guilty pleasures. As embarrassing as those may be, 'tis true. I don't know Teresa maintains any friends. She's a chaos agent. And Dorit's cuckoo, I don't know exactly what's wrong with her. And Sutton, what the hell are you still doing on that show? Get off. No one wants to watch you. All right. So what are your guilty pleasures?
I mean, I've never seen a second of either of those shows. The Desperate Housewives of New York. What was it? What is it called?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter where any of them live.
Yeah. No. I'm actually happy that your guilty pleasures are not mine, so that we could talk about something different.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff in terms of current popular culture that I'm not up on, like the show I just butchered the name of. There's this Vanderpump show that I have a niece of mine. She's older than me, but she's my niece. And she actually met the Vanderpump, like the actual person. She met her.
That's a spin-off from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She was on that guy to fight with all them. Yeah, she married a British footballer who I'm sure had to be some lord or whatever, because they are way too rich just from being a footballer and owning a bunch of restaurants. So, but they own a bunch of shishi restaurants in California as well. But someone there is a count or a countessa or both. So
that makes a lot of sense, because my niece is married to a British dude, and I don't know, maybe there's some kind of relation. Like she lives out in England, and then she was at the Emmys with the Vanderpump people. And that's the only reason I know who they are. That and the fact that I sometimes see the name because I think it was like a lead into AEW Dynamite.
No, it was aired opposite AEW Dynamite. For a while, it was used as the excuse why AEW Dynamite's numbers weren't good. Vanderpump Rules on Bravo, which I mean.
Yeah, so I would see it because of that. I would see it in some kind of a context in relation
It
to
all comes back to wrestling.
Everything's wrestling. The whole world's wrestling.
Life is wrestling. Wrestling is life. That's what we say on my podcast.
PJ will tell you every single time that the entire world is professional wrestling.
Yeah.
It really is.
So
But
you
getting
told us
back to
what
guilty-
aren't your guilty pleasures. You haven't told us what are your guilty pleasures. I ramble, but I listen.
Yeah, no, I got a few guilty pleasures there. I mean, I'm someone who, I've always held on to my childhood, whether it be, video games, comics. I still try to catch up on old shows and stuff that I used to watch. Like I still collect Pokemon cards. I still actually follow. I collect Pokemon anything. I have stuffed animals, anything that's got Pokemon on it. I'm a fan of. What else would be a guilty pleasure? I don't know if sports necessarily qualify as a guilty pleasure. I can tell, but I can tell you this one.
Stupid sports do. Like if you watch bocce
yes.
or cornhole, then that counts.
So there is a stupid sport that I'm a fan of, which is old school roller derby.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something I'm a fan of. Even when they brought back Roller Jam there in like 99, 2000, because I was a fan of the original ones. I grew up watching that. So that would be probably something that was also a guilty pleasure on my list. What else we got there?
It's not a bad list. It's not a bad list. Jeff, I'll tell you this. It's funny you asked this question because coming to Tampa this weekend, and I'm not getting paid for this free sponsorship ad, but my guilty pleasure is coming to town. It's Monster Jam live in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah.
At the football arena. So it's outside. So you get the good fucking jumps and the double backflip from, your boy Gravedigger when the fucking smoke clears. But also, when I tell you everything is professional wrestling, Monster Jam is such a work, brother. It is unbelievable. And like, when you're in the know of like entertainment and you sit there and the drivers are cutting promos on top of the truck, dude gets out, he's a shithead, everyone boos him. This guy drives the American flag truck. Oh, brother, he can't. Oh, but guess who the replacement is? Fucking Gravedigger wins every time.
So that's something interesting, bringing up Monster Jam. Because I used to watch Monster Jam on TV. We actually have a stadium here, the Olympic Stadium. It's where the Montreal Expos, our old baseball team, used to play. They're the Washington Nationals now. They have Monster Truck Expos there all the time. It's one of the only events that they still hold in there. And then maybe the occasional big concert like an AC/DC or something like that. But it's when people will tell me the term sports entertainment, and they'll say, like, is that just wrestling? And I'll actually use as examples. I'll be like, no, there's stuff like roller derby. That's also sports entertainment. There's stuff like Monster Jam. There's
Globetrotters, the Harlem Globetrotters,
Globetrotters is a great example of that. And one of my
now we have this new shit, the Savannah Bananas. If this ain't fucking wrestling baseball, these dudes got gimmicks. It's unbelievable. They're all professional wrestlers doing choreographed baseball.
Wow. I got to get in on that because I was a pretty good baseball player in my day.
These dudes, they're selling out arenas doing comedy. I don't even want to say comedy. It's like comedy's an insult to what they do. They're doing entertainment baseball. Wow. Just like the Globetrotters. They're doing Globetrotter baseball shit. It's wild.
That's fantastic.
That's legitimately something that, like, I feel I would have a good skill set for that because I was an outstanding baseball player here in Canada. Not a lot of people know that about me. But I was high level. I played, when I was 16 years old, I was playing junior ball already. They had called me up and I was playing with guys that were like basically guys that were in their 20s. I was playing with them when I was 16. I was not to say I was a prodigy or anything like that, but my skills were good enough to be playing with men when I was 16. Just that we don't have like a feeder system here. We don't have like an NCAA or a university system where you can get scouted and then get fast tracked on the right path to the major leagues. But yeah, sports entertainment exists in so many forms. American Gladiators was another show that I loved, maybe another guilty pleasure. And that was also sports entertainment. Even though it was a legit competition, you had the gladiators that were making it entertaining. And then you had other shows that spun off from that, like the New American Gladiators or like Valdo, where it was the same kind of thing, where it had that sports entertainment feel to it. It was like wrestling, but even more real at times.
Well, it gave us Terry Crews.
Yeah,
I was about to say T-Money, baby.
Yeah,
T-Money, baby.
You just love Valdo.
Hell yeah, everybody loves Valdo. But yeah, the best thing about Monster Jam is like you pull up their schedule for this weekend, brother, they're running 3-4 towns across the country. So it's such a circus act, and everything's based off literally 88 fucking WWF schedule. Man. Can you run 2 towns? And guess what? I can't go Saturday night, but it's all right. Sunday afternoon, matinee, 3:00, doubleheader. Can't wait. I'm hyped. I do mushrooms and go to Monster Jam. It's riveting.
Fantastic. Well, actually, I'm going to shut up right now. Jeremy, I know that we advertise this show as that we like to talk to wrestlers, but we don't have to talk about wrestling. But if you want to talk a little bit about wrestling, and obviously the current championships you have are the most important and your favorite championships, but aside from those, like who are some of the people that you work with? What are the titles that you've held that you've been proudest of? Who are your biggest wins? Like, how many did you beat John Cena? I guess you could see him. Those glasses are magical. I mean, what's up?
No,
you live in Montreal. Have you worked Jacques Rougeau? Like, which one of the Rougeaus have you wrestled before?
So wrestled any of them, but Jacques Rougeau actually did train me. And Jacques Rougeau he's been a mentor. He's been a benefactor. He's been, someone who's just always been in my corner and has helped me out. We talk about the titles I've won, the championships. I believe I hold the record as the Canadian who has won the most championships, the most different championships. I legitimately have won championships or defended championships in almost every province here in Canada. Very proud of that. But Jacques also, over the past 3 years, has put on a competition, a first of its kind, where wrestlers will wrestle and be judged by. Now, the win and loss doesn't matter. It's kind of like pairs figure skating, where you go, you do your performance, and then the judges are going to rate you on your wrestling ability, your promo, your physique, your wrestling gear, your ring psychology, all of that, and then they decide who advances. So it's like a tournament. You work together, but then the one that they feel had the better skills, the better performance, they go on to the next round. Jacques pioneered that in 2022. I was fortunate enough to win that one. And then I wasn't allowed to be it in 2023, then came back in 2024, competed and won once again. And there were some big prizes on the line. The first year, it was $5,000 in cash and the chance to go train at the Nightmare Factory with Cody Rhodes and QT Marshall for 3 months to do a full semester there. And then this year, the one that I just won back in November, it was $10,000 in cash money was the prize. And now getting the opportunity to go wrestle in Mexico and in Japan. Mexico, it was supposed to be for Big Lucha, but they kind of seem to have maybe ceased operations, but they plan on honoring the deal. And then also with Kyushu Pro in Japan, which was hooked up through Sonny Ono with the deal that he made with Jacques. So it's creating opportunities. And it wasn't just, guys from here. It was talent from all over Canada, coast to coast, from, out east, out west, everywhere in between. 4 shows, 2 quarterfinals, 1 semifinals for the ones that advanced, and then the finals. And there were 4 winners this year, 2 men and 2 women. So Jacques has been creating opportunities. I can't say enough good about him. He's supported me since day one. And he's always had my back, always been in my corner, and he's opened up a lot of doors for me. And will continue to do so. And I'll continue to give back to the next generation here as well. And yeah, you mentioned other people I've worked with. I've worked with a who's who of people in wrestling. I've worked with world champions like Bobby Lashley, like Rey Mysterio, like Scott Steiner on 3 occasions. I could go on and on. Jinder Mahal, he's someone who, as he was coming up, we were coming up at the same time. I was literally at the WWE tryout in Florida for FCW at the time, which became NXT, where he got hired. We were the last match to go on the very last day when they were deciding, who they're going to hire. Pat Patterson was there, and he's like, I want to see the best guys. And they put me and Jinder, and he ended up being the one they went with, even though they said, hey, we really like you, and you'll probably get a job here too. They went with Jinder, and he also became a world champion. So, I've kind of always been in the mix, and I feel I'm in the.
I love that story. I'm gonna only cut you off for this one reason. I've had 2 WWE tryouts. Both times, the person I wrestled also was signed. I was not. So I just want to let you know that happens to the best of us, brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it is what it is.
The lesson you learned is that you can't hinder the gender.
Never. Number one. I see him in the airport all the time. He's the number one person I see in the airport every time I'm in the airport.
Does he work at the airport?
Well, I mean, no, we both live in Tampa. There's only one airport. There's only one airport.
So the next time you see Jinder, Tell him that, you have a friend in Montreal named Jeremy that he should know very well. He'll know. You don't even have to say Prophet. Just say Jeremy from Montreal. He'll know exactly who you're talking about.
I do have another Wrestling Canada question for you, and that is: have you talked to Maple Leaf Pro, the new promotion that's up there that is because Ginger was there, and I know they've had a lot of crossover with AEW.
They just announced they're coming back and they're running a new show again. Am I making that up, or was that like a today or yesterday announcement? I'm breaking news here for you, Jeff. Refresh your Twitter.
So to answer that question, have I spoken to Maple Leaf Wrestling? No, I haven't. But I have spoken to Scott D'Amore in the not so distant past. So he knows who I am. It was actually Jacques that helped put us in touch with each other. He responded back to me, said he'd take a look at my stuff. And there hasn't really been a follow-up to that. But I would absolutely love to wrestle for Maple Leaf Wrestling. Anywhere that's going to, get me the exposure and get Canadians exposure. I heard Scott talk in an interview he did with Chris Van Vliet, and he said that he wants to help Canadians get exposure because it's tough for us. The border is so strict. We can't be going to wrestle in the United States. Why you guys don't see me in the United States?
Hear that, Jeff? This is why he wants to be the 51st motherfucking state. This dude
it would help.
Jump the border to come do spot shows in New England.
Oh, my goodness. Stephen Miller, are you listening?
Oh, my goodness. We figured it out. Full circle of this wrestling podcast. I knew there was all
done it again.
But those borders are strict, so it makes it real hard for all of us to get those same opportunities. We got to be 10 times as good as any of y'all so that we'll even get any kind of attention on us. It's not every company that's going to want to make that.
I got a job with Maple Leaf Pro. And I can barely get off this couch. I'm kidding. I'm probably a day away from losing my real job. So,
we all feel like that, don't we?
Yeah, pretty much. So I was actually worried a little bit because you've won so many titles, more titles than anyone else in Canada, that it sort of seems like you're challenging Natalia Neidhart. It sounds like you're calling her out.
Well, I think I've won many more than her. She could wrestle for another 20 years, and at the rate she's going, I don't think she's in danger of breaking any of my records.
Okay, there we go. So
and I say that as a very good friend of her husband, TJ. I say that with the utmost of respect. But I've got quite a head start on her. It'd have to be one of those tortoise and hare kind of stories for her to catch me.
Okay, understood. Well, she is the boat, and maybe she's a slow-moving boat, so maybe it is sort of a tortoise and hare thing, more like a sea turtle kind of thing. Anything else about wrestling that you want to talk about? Are you more heel? Are you more face? Do you switch back and forth? Everyone says they prefer being a heel, but is that the case with you?
Oh, no, I'm the opposite. I hate being a heel. Really? I absolutely hate it. I do it, and I'm told that I'm good at it, but it's not my preferred approach. I absolutely hate being a heel. I really will only do it in the sense of, doing what's good for business, but I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy getting people to hate me, especially in this day and age where people take things too personally, where you do your job too well as a heel and you do it to where people believe it. And then the next thing they do is, want to wish harm upon you and your family members. They want to cancel you. They want to whatever you call it. They don't understand that they're getting the real pro wrestling experience when it's like, I hate that guy and I want to see him get his ass kicked. They take it to this level where they don't understand the performer. They can't separate the performer from the performance. And when I've done heelish stuff, I want it to be like that the fan is like, I just want to see this guy get hurt. I want to see him get named. I don't want it to just be like, he's just playing a role. He's a nice guy in real life. I want heat. So for me, I feel like, hey, I'm just better off being a baby face. I enjoy it more. And it's the kind of thing where I don't have to have that worry in the back of my mind. So yeah, I'm not one of those people who's like, oh yeah, I like being a heel. No, I don't have to work through any insecurities and stuff. I'm good with, getting people to like me.
Okay. I remember a couple of years back that there was something with, I don't know her real name, but she went by Peyton Royce. She's Sean Spears' wife. And she couldn't get a visa. She probably doesn't care as much now because she's now had her second child. But I remember that there was something that Sean Spears, who's also Canadian, I guess he was trying to sponsor her, but he was here on a visa also, and that's a very low. You can keep your legal status, but I don't know enough about immigration to know if you can stay in the United States working if your sponsor is also on a work visa or, so, and you can, of course, if the WWE is your sponsor for the work visa, they do that stuff all the time, though even they're not seamless. I mean, I know that Obafemi had to go home for a little bit until the visa got straightened. So, there's still unpredictability there. I need to slow down a little. But, are you familiar with that situation? Did any of it resonate? Or is it just like, nah, if someone sponsors you for visa, you will. Otherwise, you'll just work north of the border primarily?
There's probably, not to toot my own horn, but there's probably nobody more knowledgeable in wrestling, like a wrestler in Canada, than me. It wouldn't be a Jeremy Prophet interview in any way if it didn't come up at some point, the visa issue, because I've been speaking out about this before anyone has. And then other people jump on the bandwagon. Not that that's here nor there, but it is the main reason why so many talented wrestlers here in Canada don't ascend to that next level, because the acquisition of a work visa is such a tiresome process for the United States. For other places in the world, it's not that hard, but it's basically laws that are put in place to keep Mexicans out of the illegal landscaping industry, that keep great Canadian wrestlers out of the American independent and professional scene. Just acquiring a work visa is extremely tough. You only have a handful of companies that have enough credibility to actually sponsor one. And most of the talent that wrestle in the United States are doing it illegally under the threat of potentially getting banned, like a lot of wrestlers have, and hoping just to get noticed for their career. I've literally had people in interviews, people in positions of power, and I brought it to their attention. I brought it to the attention of people like Gabe Sapolsky, who you actually kind of remind me a bit of him. You look like him, but I don't know if you get that a lot. But
I never have before, but next time if I ever meet Gabe, I will mention that. But I know who he is because I'm in Baltimore, and of course, Ring of Honor was based here for basically 10 years.
And so I brought it to his attention. I brought it to TJ Wilson's attention, where in the business model of WWE, their whole thing is they want you to get over. They want you to be well known on the independent scene. We're hiring the best from the independent scene.
It's better say I remind you of Gabe than your dad, because that means I just look like an old Jewish guy that's vaguely your father's.
Well, you don't look like my dad. That's for sure. Okay. But you do look like Gabe. With that said, they hire the best, the wrestler who, and best is a subjective thing because wrestling is a subjective game, but they hire the wrestlers that have the most buzz and whatnot. Right. Like if you compare my accomplishments to that of people in, let's say, if I'd accomplished the same stuff in Japan, for example, I'd already be on the radar. If I was doing the same stuff that I'm doing in a big name indie, like a GCW or like Evolve back when they were, going strong, I'd already, or a PWG, I'd be on the radar. But when they said we went and we hired the best of the indies, we went and hired the best of the American indies. Because to hire a Canadian or, to hire an Australian, you have to pay for the work visa. So you're already putting that down payment on a talent that, for all you know, could go in and become a quadriplegic.
Price on a work visa these days? Like, what exactly does it cost a company to pay for a work visa?
It could be anywhere between $2 to $15,000.
Yeah,
right up the gate. So you can already, if I can just have the floor, you can already see why it's more advantageous to be able to, hire a guy on like a per appearance deal. Here's another one for you, by the way. So WWE, they have an office in Canada, so they can actually legally bring in a talent to perform anywhere. They could bring him into Hartford, Connecticut. They could bring him into San Diego, California. They can do that because they have an office in Canada. Now, the border may still turn you around because they can. That's their prerogative. But WWE, legally, they can bring you in. They can pay you. You are allowed to perform in the United States as a Canadian, as a part of WWE. You can do that. Many guys do that. AEW, and I can tell you firsthand, having been there and been close to people in VP positions and whatnot, they can't do that. That's why you don't see many international people on AEW events getting dark matches and things like that. Like literally, I was at the Nightmare Factory in Atlanta, and they said we're doing dark tapings down in, I think it was in Orlando, and they said but unfortunately we can't use you guys because you're Canadian. We can't do that. We can only use Canadians when it's in Canada. So it limits our opportunities tremendously with all of those companies. Same thing with TNA, same thing with a lot of these top level companies. They can't, like they said, like we can't even bring you and use you there because it's like it could be used against the company. This could be something that Tony Khan's father could be attacked for by having someone go there and wrestle. And then it's like, well, this person came and wrestled illegally. And that's what it is. And the saddest part is you look at the guys that get hired by all these top companies, the Canadians. And it's like, it's the ones who did go and work illegally on the independent and win their merits from there that allowed them to be able to get noticed by the so-called scouts or powers that be and be able to ascend their careers. I'm someone who's done the work here in Canada because, quite frankly, I don't want to risk getting banned from the United States. And, I for a sport that I love, but not something that is paying my bills. And with that said, like I've accomplished as much as anyone can accomplish here in Canada, but it's all kind of moot because our scene is not scouted. So we have lots of great talent that can be game changing in any company, but unfortunately not getting the attention that we rightfully deserve.
I have a serious question for you on this. I mean, not that all questions haven't been, but some haven't been, but this is. When you said that a lot of the indie wrestlers from other countries are working here illegally, I presume that means that they're mostly working for cash as opposed to getting, on any 1099 or what have you. And I'm not sure that's so unusual, period. But is there a higher percentage of getting screwed by the promoter because not only are you working cash, but also you have no recourse?
So I don't think that that's really something that I've heard of happening. Like obviously it could, but I think
Carney.
Yeah,
there's someone out there that's gotten got. That's probably not the reason though.
But I mean, let's say a promoter, for example, let's say I was one of those guys and I'm going and I'm working for that promoter and it's like, okay, I got Jeremy Prophet on my show. He's happy to be here and get this kind of exposure. I'm happy with the quality of performance that he's bringing to my show. I'm not going to want to piss the guy off. And I think it falls under that with a lot of promoters. They know that they can get talent that will be happy, to get an okay payday, maybe not break the bank, maybe be lucky to get enough to cover their travel expenses, just to be able to perform on a scene where it'll get them some exposure and maybe have someone be willing to go to bat for them. One of the things that I've always said is that it's not even a case of where you're showcasing your talent, but it limits the networking that we have too. That we could, be in a locker room with people where we could rub shoulders with certain, people that could go to bat for us, people who, they might work their way up the ladder or, they might have the right connections. And then they'll actually be able to say, yeah, this guy, not only is he a good worker, but he's a good guy to have in the locker room. He's a good human being. That's how the business is. It's not a 100-meter dash where the fastest guy gets the gold medal. It's a game of who you know and who you're friends with and people that can vouch for you. That's how people get their jobs in this. It's a plus being talented. But, you got to be someone that people want to go to bat for. And that's really where a lot of Canadians are just kind of these unknown entities. No matter how good they are, we don't have those connections because we're not able to go and legally work on the American independent scene. I'm not able to go and rub shoulders with a guy like Thomas and, have him, go to the people that he knows and say, yeah, I met that Jeremy. He's a good guy. He's not a guy you got to worry about, going out and drinking, getting into a bar fight or going home and beating his girlfriend or, any of that kind of stuff. He's a good dude. He's about the wrestling. That means so much more in wrestling than what you do belt to belt.
Well, I think that was good words of wisdom. Probably a good place to leave it. But before we do, we'll just let everyone know where they can find and follow you and where they can see you and how they can support you.
Yeah. Well, you can find me pretty much right across social media. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Jeremy Prophet. That's Jeremy, like my name, Jeremy, Prophet, like in the Bible, Prophet. You can also find me on Instagram at The Real Jeremy Prophet, spelled exactly the same way. And also, I'm going to throw in a plug for my podcast. It's called Jofo in the Ring. Stands for just our effing opinion in the ring. You can find us on YouTube, and we have tons of great episodes. We're actually working on our newest season right now. So, if you want to be a part of the Jeremy Prophet experience, I'm not a hard guy to find, very approachable, very sociable, and always willing to speak the truth, whether people like it or not.
And very well spoken. I love when you said, may I have the floor. I think that was great. What a polite way to shut me up. Yes, I tend to go on and on. Thomas, if you want to be found and followed, and I know you sort of do and sort of don't, but where can people find you other than Monster Trucking this weekend?
Leave me alone. But if you do want to bother me, it's Mocha Traps on the Instagram, Mocha Traps on the Twitter. If you want to see me in real life, I'll be in Atlanta, Georgia on February 8th for MLW. Another main event payday. Get your tickets. They'll probably sell out like the last two did. Center stage. That's where we'll be, Atlanta, Georgia. Outside of that, catch me if you can. I'll be here.
You notice how MLW's been selling out ever since I became a super fan?
Something like that. Ever since you showed up, man, people have been buying tickets. I don't know.
I am really good luck for other people. Not so much for myself, but I am good luck for other people. So, Prophet, I hope it works out for you as well. I hope you get the Jeff Littman show rub. I don't. None of that sentence sounded right. In any event, thank you so much for being on the show. I hope you had fun. And if any other of your peers or whatnot would love to come on, hey, we'd love a Rougeau, but it doesn't need your TJ anything. But again, we can talk a little bit about wrestling, but about other stuff as well, including if they have any sort of deep passion hobby thing. Like unfortunately, I don't know much about Pokemon, but say I did, we could have talked about that. But
well, I can definitely teach you a thing or two about that. And I'll also throw out that, you want a Rougeau on your show. I think we can maybe arrange for that. I have a pretty good in with the man. But yeah, in exchange for that, I don't ask for much, but maybe you could ask PJ, who, unfortunately didn't grace us with his presence tonight. He'd be interested in appearing on my show, and we can, go over our interactions from years gone by.
Sounds like an even trade.
I will absolutely ask. Unfortunately, I don't have agency over him, but I will 100%. I will ask. That is not a thing. That is not a problem at all. Though I've been told by Super Panda that I gave him trauma. So, but that's all right. All right. Anyway, thanks so much for listening, everybody. Please subscribe to Garden of Doom. You'll get Garden of Doom, Garden of Views, and GoD presents the Book of Black, or the Gospel of Thomas, or who knows, maybe the Wisdom of the Prophets, or the Song of the Siren, or whatever other clever names I come up with. Follow our friends, support Jeremy, check out his podcast, support MLW Wrestling, support Canadian wrestling, watch wrestling, and even though I personally don't like AEW, support AEW anyway. Who cares what I?
Yeah, hell yeah! And somebody out there, upload the Devastation Corporation versus Tabernacle the team from Montreal in whatever year that was, and fucking tag me. That's one of you nerds has it somewhere.
Yeah, well, how about you tag your former partner and get him on the show? How's that sound?
Right. His Twitter's banned, but he's coming on next week.
Well, I don't need his Twitter. I just need him to have a camera. Anyway, no one here needs to wait and listen to us bicker like a husband and wife. It makes me cry. It's so beautiful. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. See you next time.
For more episodes of Garden of Doom, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on the Wrestling Soup Network, available on all major podcast platforms. Garden of Doom is a weekly show hosted by Jeff Littman. Follow Jeff Littman on X at Dose Evil, and follow Dr. PJ Black at Darewolf333.